Hey guys, thanks for tuning in, and welcome back. So this is really just a tutorial about barrier to entry. Where do I start if I pick up an 80 series Land Cruiser? Obviously it's almost 30 years old, mine's a 93, and I had never changed a tire before this, and I've changed oil before this on certain cars, and had an 87 Accord that I thought I was doing stuff to, but in the end just started the wrong way and didn't have the finances, didn't have the know-abouts, didn't have the patience really, and started doing stuff on the outside, head gasket blew. Anyway, it's just, where do I start? And the first part of it is really just looking at your general maintenance, and you can kind of see them pointing out different things you should definitely start with: your intake and your filters, and start with your well, yeah, first of all, get a Haynes manual. Big deal. Thanks to my buddy Dan, shout out to him, who just kind of helped me out and figure out what it is that I'm doing. And this is not a tutorial about taking the steering wheel off, but my steering wheel was off and it's cocked, so I wanted to take it off and reposition it to a more aligned position. But anyway, so I started out with doing all the fluids. So I started doing out the axle fluid, or axle gear, and oil, and then I started first of all the motor oil. Then I did a full tune-up with spark plugs and wires and distributor cap, and all the hoses that started to go, whether it be heater hoses, vacuum hoses, radiator hoses. Did all my radiator hoses actually, and then probably a couple months later my radiator went out. Did the belts, and this is all before I did any of the suspension or did any of the cosmetic situational things that have come up. And I think that's where you should start. Start with all your fluids. Start with the brake fluids. Start with your oil. Start with your transmission fluid, all your gear oil, all your axle fluid, all your your transfer case fluid, power steering fluid, radiator fluid. If you're lucky like me, you'll get it, with only 10 owners previously before you, and you have no fucking idea what it is that they've done, what's been done wrong. Brakes is probably the next thing I would highly recommend after all your fluids and your filters. And then I also did the transmission filter, and that was just kind of my barrier to entry. So getting that done and then starting with the brakes, the rears and the fronts, was really the start of my mechanics and getting into it and doing it myself. And here I'm pointing out the knuckles, and that was one of the biggest things that kind of got me saying, okay, I need to get some tools, I need to get some parts, and I need to start researching this stuff. And doing the knuckles was definitely needed because it was oozing out not only the actual fluid itself of gear or grease, but it was also leaking out axle fluid and axle oil, and that was a sign that I knew I needed to get that done. And then I found out that someone had done it before and then didn't apply the right bearing, and you find out who's done what, and so I wanted to kind of start with a clean slate, and so that's where I highly recommend you begin your journey with your 80 series. Is start with your fluids, start with the essentials, brakes. That's pointing out the transfer case. That's going to be your transmission oil or fluid, transmission fluid, and then that's going to be your oil pans. So those are the main big hitters for sure. And then just kind of do the front and rear axles. While you're there, you'll probably want to get the replacement bolts, which you can pick up at Toyota, because mine were stripped. On the outside, that bolt seems to be a pretty, not weak, but just a softer metal. And so I also have a stripped socket, so you hammer it on there, and then you can get a rounded nut off, which is pretty awesome, or a rounded bolt, either one. So there's just things, that you kind of need to look at and where you need to start. And a lot of people, I didn't get into the 80 series or the Land Cruiser because it was what it, for off-roading or camping or anything like that. I actually was just kind of going through a quarter-life crisis. I was 1 year into marriage, and we only had one car. And I was just like, I had a Land Cruiser before that, and I just wanted another Land Cruiser, and so I found this up in the Northwest, and I had to have it. So I picked it up for $3,500, I think, and didn't know, again, what had happened to it, who had done anything to it, and I didn't know how to do really anything. So it was really just a hobby I picked up and got into, and have built some really good friendships over. And this is kind of pointing out the back there. So I redid the drums and all the undercoating. Like I said, again, shout out to Eastwood Paint, because that is a very good product. I'm super happy with the undercoating, and definitely is a project and a half to get all that done. I took it over for probably took me about a month and a half, taking the weekends and taking about 4 or 5 hour chunks just to sand it down and get it properly applied. And anyway, so I didn't get into the Land Cruiser because of off-roading or 4x4 or, doing trail stuff. Never been into it. Want to get into it. Want to make it like a weekend camper. But it really just has become a hobby and a joy for me to take things apart and figure out how they work. And it's also a fucking trip just to get super frustrated and bust a knuckle. That's some of the cosmetic stuff I've had to do. I want to redo the paint probably back to factory white, and do some new pinstripes and sanded down and shined up all the chrome. Anyway, that's my area definitely has some corrosion, and so I want to stop all the rust as soon as I can. As soon as I see any rust, I kind of just take care of it so it doesn't eat away at the metal. And even though the paint might look a little schlocky or a little bit ghetto, I try and do at least a decent job to stop any of the continued corrosion. But I don't know. I think if you want to get into it, I think you need to start with the essentials. Again, it's really tempting to start with, lift the cruiser and get the bumpers and get the lights and get all the cool tricks and go out, and all of a sudden you're stranded. You know what I mean? It's all because you can't start, or your starter's bad, your alternator's bad, or you have no oil. You know what I mean? You have leaks. Like, it's something you really need to pay attention to. And I've tried to go OEM as much as I can, and some things you just have to make the choice on what you can afford and what you is available to you. And like I said, I kind of starting different programs and not really having funds to do anything to it is kind of makes you figure out what you need to start with. And mine were the essentials, and I just got it to the point where I knew all the gaskets were going to be good, and my valve cover was going to be good, and my hoses weren't leaking, my radiator was good, my oil pan, like all those things were just fresh, and I know that I've touched it, I know that it's done. And then I started slowly getting, like, my battery's good, my charcoal canister, my different hoses, again, like, those are super important, the essentials. And so differentiating between essentials and fun and pleasure is probably where I figured out where to start. And then you just kind of look at what is priority. Like, are your tie rod ends bad? Are you bouncing up and down? And so you maybe just need to get some new struts from AutoZone. That's what I did, and it cost you $100 to get all four, and start with that. I really just wanted a daily driver. That was also what I wanted. I want to get 325,000 miles on it before I do anything major. And I tried to stop all the leaks that I found, and and it really just started to get my hands in it. And so now I'm onto the cosmetic, things that don't really matter. They don't add any value per se. It's just more of now of a style preference, or things that I want to do in the future. So headlights and taillights and, interior things, the creature comforts are some things that me and my wife were actually working on and trying to build out. And, some of the electronic components are going to need to be reevaluated, and definitely want to get my windows to actually slide up faster than Taco Bell fucking drive-through. So whoever you are, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully I've been able to help you out with some things. But I'm not a mechanic, so if I can give you any light or ideas, I just enjoy working on this car, and I enjoy working on what it has to offer, and coming to find out what the 80 series is and what it's been built for has been fun for me. It's been a good outlet and a good time. So at the end of the day, I don't know why you're getting into rebuilding a Land Cruiser or what it is that you want from your Land Cruiser, but I think you've purchased a good car. You've definitely purchased something that is coveted in certain forms of cultures and whatnot, and I'm just a big 90s fan, so hopefully this helps, and if you have any questions, comments, go ahead. But thanks again for tuning in, and for this journey. Let's have some fun with things that we have and take care of it as best as we can. Take care, guys.